Well, hello there.
Hi.
Welcome to Life Hacks with Elise. Now, I am not Elise, but I want to introduce you to Elise, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Miss Elise.
Well, I am, as you said, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I've been doing therapy for 14 years this year. I've
Wow.
been a therapist. That includes my time as a practicum therapist, total. Licensed since 2013, fully licensed since 2013. And yeah, I have a passion for helping people to find health and healing.
I love it. I love it. Now, listen, guys, as you come in, send up a greeting. Let us know what city you're in. Elise, what city are you in?
I am in San Diego, California. How
I
about
am so jealous. I love San Diego.
It is a beautiful city, and it is beautiful today.
Are you close to the beach?
Um, a little bit where my office is only about 10 minutes away.
I love
So,
it.
yeah,
And is your practice in San Diego?
yes, it's in San Diego in the heart of Mission Valley.
I love it. I love it. So, you are a licensed marriage and family therapist. What other areas of therapy do you cover?
So, as a licensed marriage and family therapist, I work with children. I started off my training working with children. So, most of my practicum or my hours to get licensed, I worked at children's facilities with children who had been traumatized or suicidal, depression, anxiety in children.
Well,
And then I also work with couples and work with a type of treatment called emotionally focused therapy, which helps couples to reconnect.
okay.
So it helps with disconnection. And then I work with trauma, and in that, I do EMDR, helping patients who have experienced childhood and adult traumas.
Okay. Now you just said something fancy. What is EMDR?
EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization reprocessing. That is a big, fancy name for
Yeah.
helping somebody to reprocess traumatic memories so that we move it out of the body. So, trauma, when it comes into your body, it locks in as sensations and feelings. I kind of like to tell my clients when I'm working with them that trauma is like those old fashioned viewfinders. So, where you stick the round things in and you go click.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what happens when a traumatic event occurs, your brain goes into survival mode. And in that mode, it doesn't tell a story, it kind of snapshots a feeling, a smell, a sensation, and a thought in
Okay.
your body. And what EMDR does is it targets those and it helps those to move out of your body.
That's pretty cool. Now, how does that work?
Well, when a client comes to me who has trauma,
Mhm.
we start off by doing a complete and total history, and then we do what's called a developmental or target history. So it's kind of figuring out what are some of these key targets that are really something that happened to them, whatever that traumatic experience is,
Mhm.
and then we do these what's called bilateral stimulation. Now, if it's telemedicine, the client can tap themselves. If it's in my office, they hold on to these tappers, and as they're holding on to the tappers, it buzzes left, right. And what that does is it stimulates the left and right side of the brain,
Okay.
and it helps the brain to, logic is on the left side of the brain, and your memories are kind of stored onto the right side of the brain. So it helps rapid communication so that you can then move those things out.
So you're like basically reprogramming someone's thoughts and emotions, not just by talking about it, but by using like stimulus.
Exactly. So they actually don't have to tell the whole story, which is beautiful because it's not re traumatizing. We're in talk therapy, they got to keep talking about the story. What we do with EMDR is what we do is we target a picture, an
Mhm.
emotion, And body sensation, where do they feel that emotion in their body? That's that locked in feeling. And a
Mhm.
negative belief that's tied with it. And then I say, let whatever happens, happens. And we just let the memory, because, it's beautiful because God created our brains in which you just let the memory, they can heal themselves, but you
Wow.
just let the memory go where it wants to go. And usually what happens is memories are linked together. And
Mhm.
as they're linked, we start to go through those links and delink the ones that you don't need. And then out in the atmosphere somewhere on the left side of the brain is
Mhm.
this link. So let me give you an example. The easiest example would be somebody who is in a car accident.
Okay.
The car flipped upside down, right? But even though it flipped upside down, the person got out of the car and they walked out of the car. They were a little shook up, but it wasn't serious damage, right? But in the middle of spinning, their brain said, I'm going to die, I'm going to die, I'm going to die.
Sure.
Okay. So even though they walked out safe, the piece that says you're safe is floating in the ethos somewhere.
Okay.
But all of these feelings are trapped in the body. And so now when I go to get into a car, I feel panicky. I
Mm.
feel like I'm not going to be able to do it.
Mhm.
Right. So what happens with the MDR is we're going to delink the things that don't belong. Like,
Okay.
I'm going to die. Okay, we're going to take that out. We're going to keep playing the story. We're going to show them go what happened next? What happened next? What happened next? So that we're linking the story now. It's not just click 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 click, it's a story.
Okay.
And in the end of the story is, "Oh, I was okay." And when we get to that place, but I'm not telling them, they're letting their memory go through it.
Gotcha.
And then in the end, it's like, yeah, well, I was fine. I left the hospital that same night. There was nothing wrong with me. And we're tapping that in. So now all of a sudden you have this new link. When I look at the car accident, my brain goes, oh, I'm okay.
Because I survived,
Right.
and I no longer feel that apprehension about getting into a car.
Exactly.
I love it. So that seems like such a specialized area of therapy. What made you decide to go that route?
Um, Actually, it was a couple of things, but one of the most important things. So when I first started working, when I was doing my licensing hours, I decided to take a break from working with children and I started working with vets. And while I was working with vets, I was working with a therapist who said, you're not doing good work with them if you don't do EMDR. And I was like, nope. I wasn't a big fan of it. It felt like I wasn't in the room sometimes.
Right.
Um, and I didn't understand it. Okay. It felt hocus
Gotcha.
pocusy to me. Okay. So, which is what my clients say to me is like, is this
Okay.
hocus pocus? Are you doing something to my mind? Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so I didn't want to do it. But years down the road, I had a military client who had been in war in Afghanistan,
Mhm.
and he was just a wonderful client, hardworking, beautiful client. I mean, all my clients are wonderful, but he
Yeah.
was just one of those who had a lot of post traumatic stress disorder symptoms,
Okay.
PTSD symptoms, and we were using cognitive kind of trauma focused cognitive work, and he was doing the best he could, but the thing is I couldn't touch his nightmares. I couldn't get the
Wow.
nightmares to go away no matter what work we did. And we had worked together for about a year. And at that point I was like, if it's not working, it has to be me. It has to be me, because
Mhm.
my belief is that my knowledge about the brain and my belief in God is that he created our brains to be able to they're neuroplastic, so they can continuously grow and learn,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So if they're not growing and learning, then it's what is going on that's blocking that ability. So for me, it's okay. We are now at a place where you can go places without panicking. You can use all the skills that I've given you, but you're going to sleep at night and you're depressed because the
Mhm.
nightmares that you've had for 13 years continue. So at that point, I decided to go back and get my training in, I do what's called attachment focused EMDR. So I got my training from the Parnell Institute and I started training. And when I came back and used the EMDR with him, within 6 sessions of doing the EMDR, mind you, we had done a year of work. So this is not like a magic number. Okay, let me put
Sure.
it that
Sure.
way. But within 6 sessions of doing the EMDR, all of his nightmares ceased. It's probably been 5 years now. He still has no nightmares.
Yeah,
He's in touch once in a while
I love it.
and checks in. So from that point, I decided to dive in deep. I was super hungry. I got tons and tons and tons of supervision. I
Mhm.
ended up becoming certified as an EMDR therapist, which is extra work above and beyond the training.
Sure.
And then I am now in the process of becoming a consultant of consultants. So I can consult people who are consulting, basically. I can consult people who are trying to get certified. So that's my next step because I just believe in it so much and I love it.
Yeah. So I want to ask you this. What do you want people to know about therapy? Because you said so many good things. One, you're a believer, right? And sometimes there is a stigma attached to therapy because we know that Jesus can fix it, but we don't always take advantage of all the opportunities that Jesus gives us to fix it. There are some things that, we kind of as believers will only rely on the spiritual aspect, but you just said something so beautiful that God created our bodies and our minds to function a certain way. So what do you want people to know about therapy?
So, tying in kind of everything that you just said, my there's a lot into that question. So let me just kind of take it from the beginning. Is that when we look at scripture, the scripture tells us that to seek wise counsel, right? To bear one another's burdens.
Mhm.
And this scripture just has these things that we do, and we tend to feel like if I'm going to therapy, I'm weak.
Mm,
Whether you're a believer or not, people will tend to say, if I'm going to therapy, I'm weak,
mhm.
right? There's
Yeah.
something wrong with me. I should have more faith, or I should be able to handle
Mm,
my feelings better, and this is the language they give themselves. But what I want people to know about therapy in general is that therapy, a therapist is there only to guide you to your own inner wonderful. Okay?
right.
I'm not there to turn you into something I want you to become. I want you to become. I'm there to help you discover the tools. And sometimes that's what we need is we need somebody beside us to say, is that really true? Right?
Mhm.
Because I've believed something about myself for so long. We
Mhm.
need somebody beside us to say, is that really true? Hi, Joy. Good to see you, my friend Joy, all the way from Oceanside, California.
Woo-hoo, we love Oceanside. Well, thanks for tuning in, Ms. Joyce. Make sure you copy the link and share it with some people, or go to Elise's Facebook page and share it there. So, the stigma that's attached to um, therapy, how do we overcome it?
Um, I think by understanding that, so if you're coming at it and you're a Christian, you overcome the stigma by recognizing that God, everything in creation is created by God, including therapy. Okay, to help
Love it.
us because his desire and design is that we live an abundant life. That's what John 10:10 tells us is
Mhm.
I've come that you might have life and that more abundantly. So if I'm not leading an abundant life, I
Mhm.
need to figure out what it is that I need to do and get the help I need. And the other piece is, for those that may be listening, maybe they aren't believers and they say, well, what about this feeling like I'm crazy if I go to a therapist? You're not crazy, okay? It's like anything else. If you go to school, you're going to school to learn more information, to grow,
That's good.
right? You don't go to school because you're stupid. You go to school because you want more information.
I love that.
So when you go to therapy, you're going there to gain more skills, to get more information. That's really what it's all about because every person that comes to me has some strengths. They have to because they're still alive, they're still walking, they came into me, they have a strength, they reached out. So it's not I'm crazy or I'm weak. Really, to get where you're at, everybody has an inner strength because the days when your mind said don't get out of bed, you're so depressed you don't want to.
Mhm.
Somehow, even in that, you managed to look for a therapist. You got up.
Yeah.
Right? You
Yeah.
get up and you go to work when you don't feel like it. You go outside and take deep breaths when you're starting to get anxious, and yet you can manage to go back to work. Inside of you is some skills. What
Mhm.
I do is come along, and any other therapist, is we come along to just help you gain more and more skills.
I love it. I love it. And I think the other thing that we have to realize is that I think it was Job who says that man born of a woman is of a few days and that full of trouble. Like we all have trouble. We all are going to have traumatic instances. I almost feel like people are talking about surviving COVID as like a PTSD type of thing. We might all need some EMDR therapy, like, on how to readjust and go back to or get to what we're going to call a new normal, because I don't think anything's ever going to go back to normal. But it doesn't mean that you are weak, as you said, if you seek additional tools and just look at counseling as a tool.
Hmm.
I love it.
Exactly. Exactly.
So how can we choose a therapist? So I'm going to tell you this. If I'm going to go look for a therapist, I'm just going to Google on the interweb and I'm going to say, find me a therapist near my area. And I'm going to look for the person who has the best website. I hope their office looks really beautiful. And I hope they have nice staff. So those are my criteria for choosing a therapist. But what should I be looking for in a therapist?
Um, Again, I think that's a really broad question.
Okay.
And it's actually part of the reason why I decided to create Life Hacks with Elise. So Life Hacks with Elise, one of the areas is to help people gain an insight as to what they're looking at when they do Google, right? When
Okay.
you Google or you go to Psychology Today, what are all those letters? What's CBT and EFT and EMDR and ACT and what am I looking at? Okay.
Mhm.
But here's the thing: if you're looking for a therapist, one, you want to interview your therapist. Just because you talk to them and they say they have openings doesn't mean you have to take them. You can say, okay, can I give you a call back? I have some that have sat there and asked me questions, for 20 minutes. I always offer. I put down that they can call me and ask me questions,
Okay.
because a greater part of the healing process, a big part of the healing process, is whether or not we can create a relationship. Because
Okay.
if you don't trust me,
Mhm.
you're gonna only give me a part of you.
Sure.
And if you only give me a part of you, then I'm missing some pretty big pieces that could help you heal,
Mhm.
right? Because you're kind of holding back. And I've seen that even with my clients, is like 4 months into it, suddenly they drop a bomb. And I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
could have used that, because it takes time to build trust, right?
Yeah.
So you want to spend some time talking to the person, not just, do you have openings? How much does it cost? Oh, good, I can
'Cause,
afford it.
that's gonna be my question. Because 'cause I'm
Right.
like, can I really afford this? Like,
Right. Let's just say you are, part of a special community, and maybe you want somebody who really understands what that community is, right? You can ask that. Um, I have people that call up and they'll say, you're doing couples therapy. Are you married? Okay, because maybe that's one of their values. Now, not all couples therapists, you can have a skill set that you don't need to have been married to use, okay, as a therapist, and be really good at it. But for some people, that's what matters to them. So they're going to ask,
Mhm.
okay? It matters to some people whether or not they're with somebody who speaks Spanish or is of the same culture as them,
Mhm.
right? Whatever that is. So these are the things that you can and you're welcome to ask. And so when you're looking for a therapist, you want to ask that. You also want to give them a brief description of what you need, because you want to make sure that that's what they can do. So if I'm looking for a child specialist, I want to find out, do they do child therapy? Maybe what's important to me is, do you also work with the family, or do you only work with the child only? Because I want to know whether or not I'm going to be a part of the treatment, right? So
Mhm.
it's really, how do I find a good therapist? Is I do what you did. I mean, you can do it. You can say, I need a therapist that takes Blue Shield, Blue Cross, or
Mhm.
whatever. right?
Mhm.
But then out of that list, make
Mhm.
some phone calls. And when you're making the phone calls, you don't have to take the first person that comes along that says, yes, I have an opening and yes, I take Blue Cross. You can ask the questions that you need, or you can even type in descriptors of a particular thing, like Spanish speaking therapist near me. It'll pop up. You'll find people who will pop up who meet that criteria, right? Or African American therapists near me, right?
So how long, well, in your instance, like how long do you give people? Are you very patient when people call in to ask you those preliminary questions before they get started with therapy? Like how many questions am I allowed to ask, as like a potential
Um,
patient?
I am very generous. Okay, not all therapists have that amount of time to be that generous. Some of the therapists, when you go to look up, you'll see whether or not they offer free consultation, 30-minute free consultation by phone,
Mhm.
right? So I offer a free 30-minute consultation.
Okay.
Now, when I say I'm very generous, that's a generous amount of time in my day, but sometimes that generousness goes a little bit longer. I mean,
Mhm.
but I try to stick mostly and say, okay, it's been 30 minutes. Some people want to come into my office for that 30-minute consultation, and they're welcome
Mhm.
to. But the reason why is because I fully understand how anxiety works.
Sure.
And when, if I'm going to, because I specialize in working with trauma, there's a lot of anxiety involved in that. And so I want people to feel comfortable with me so that they are comfortable in the process.
And that's what makes you one of my favorite clients. Because you are, and, I've seen nothing but glowing reviews about, the way you do therapy, even when you do training, and even this program, Life Hacks with Elise, just shows your genuine care for people, that you really do want to bring holistic health, healing, mental, health, physical health, because, of course, mental health affects our physical health, but you want to address the whole person, even from a spiritual perspective. So that is super amazing. So tell us, what exactly is Life Hacks with Elise? What are you trying to accomplish by providing this YouTube stream, this little program on Facebook Live, this interactive type of session for people?
I started Life Hacks with Elise because like I said in the beginning, thanks, Joyce. Um, like I said in the beginning, I started it because I have a passion for people to heal. I only have so much time in my day.
Mhm.
I can only see hour by hour or 90-minute sessions, and there's only so many in a day. So I really have a heart to help people gain insight and understanding into their own processes and also how to get the help that they need. So Life Hacks with Elise, the birthing of Life Hacks with Elise was came out of uh, first of all, I had people always, even in different states, who knew me, but would call me up and say, what does this mean? How do I find somebody? I really want somebody that has this, 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 and this, but I don't understand. And so I was constantly answering these questions of just people in my personal life of like, what is cognitive behavioral work? How does this help? What
Mhm.
about healing? And so it started off with this really strong desire that I want to make therapy more accessible and understandable. Okay. And then the other piece is that my vision is that people will heal body, soul, and spirit. Because what we have done is we have the way our Western model is that the mind is one piece, the body is one piece, right?
Mhm.
And the spirit is a totally different piece. The
Mhm.
problem is that they all interact with each other.
Mhm.
So if I'm not feeling good, then mentally I'm not doing well. And if
Mhm.
I'm not doing well mentally and physically, spiritually, I might not have the energy to pray. So we're interacting all the time,
Absolutely.
right? And as a result of that, we divided up. People are not connecting. They're not connecting the dots. Okay.
Mhm.
So that if my thoughts are constantly negative, it's going to make my body sick
Mhm.
and I'm not going to have the energy I need. So I wanted to start Life Hacks with Elise so that I could bring in different people. So it's not just going to be Elise. Sometimes it might be me by myself because I have something on my heart that I'd like to share. But for the most part, I'm going to be bringing in people that I will be interviewing that do different types of therapy. So I do EMDR, maybe somebody else does narrative therapy. And somebody goes, well, what's narrative therapy? Because when I get on Psychology Today, they check off these boxes of these types of therapies that they work with, but nobody knows what that means. So
Mhm.
people are calling me up saying, I looked at your profile and you just had a pretty smile.
I'm telling you what we're looking for. We're looking for somebody who's nice, whose office is clean, who has nice staff.
Right.
We don't know what you do.
Right. We don't know what you do at all. So
Yeah.
it's basically going to be a behind the scenes look at therapists. It's also a real talk about the behind the scenes look at therapists and their lives. How do they manage the stress of, like, say, COVID or a death in the family? What do they do so that you get a real behind the scenes look? But also bringing in, you know, doctors who can talk about the body, and so this is my ultimate goal, is that Life Hacks with Elise will be tips and tricks, and it'll also help to reach people who may not have the financing or even the insurance, because I'm finding that a lot of people are underinsured now, and
Absolutely.
they can't afford to go to a therapist. And this way I can bring some of those tips to people and give them some tips and some tricks, and just, and have them interact, and I can answer their questions live, and really just help the body of believers, the whole body, right,
Yeah.
heal.
I love it. I love it. So, for those of you who are watching now, if there's a subject matter that you want Elise to cover, you can go ahead and type that in the comments. If you happen to come back and catch this as a replay, you can still put in the comments any areas of interest that you would like Elise to address, and that could be a future episode of Life Hacks with Elise. Now, how often do you plan to do this?
Well, right now we're going to start off at a couple times a month. So
Mhm.
2 times a month we're going to go live. And then after a while we're going to start doing it once a week.
I love
But
it.
but our goal, right? But right now we're just going to kind of ease into it, and just get it out there, and then start trying to see, you know,
Now, the name of you have your office or your
my
counseling is
center.
Beauty for Ashes. So they can follow you on Instagram at Beauty for Ashes underscore TC. You can also visit her website at beautyforashestc.org. You can also subscribe to her YouTube channel, Beauty for Ashes. And when you subscribe to the channel, make sure you click that notifications button so that you'll know every time that she goes live. And of course, if you're connected to her on Facebook and all the social media platforms, you'll be able to see all of the upcoming things that she has going on. Well, Elise, this has been an amazing time. I think people have gotten some good information. I think EMDR therapy is awesome. I might come to San Diego and have you erase some of my traumatic memories.
Yes, yes, and people don't know who you are, so let me just reverse introduce. For those of you who don't know, this is Dana, not Elise. Dana Tyler. She is my virtual assistant who works behind the scenes to help me in a multitude of ways. She's set up all of this stuff for me. You might see her more than once because she's also an entrepreneur extraordinaire. I don't know how many business you have, but she's like a life coach and a virtual assistant and all those other things. And we want to bring all of that into play as well. So you might see, but some of the wonderful topics that we're going to be talking about are those topics, but healing. Just healing from all different perspectives. How does acupuncture help us, and how does nutrition help us? And so I am really, life coaches, what do they do? Because
Mhm.
we just want the body to heal,
Yeah,
and all the way around, the mind, the body, soul, spirit, the
it's
whole
all
tripartite
connected.
piece of us to live in fullness. And it is my passion. So I'm excited about this Life Hacks with Elise. I cannot wait for the for for our even our next one, just to really help people. And
Yeah. So save the date for the second Saturday in April and look forward to all of the amazing things. Now, make sure you are definitely following because there's tons of great information and just little life hacks that you kind of post on your social media. So thank you guys for tuning in. We will see you next week or next month.
bye bye, everybody.